All right, everybody. How are you doing? I hope that you have had a glorious and wonderful hump day. Whoop, 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 woo. Okay, so we're going to continue this, I don't know, just this nice little stroll through the case of Charlie. Well, the murder of Dan Markel. And the person who is currently on trial would be the ex-wife's brother, Charlie Adelson. And so we're gonna talk about him. Margaret Lee says, no, everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty by a jury of their peers. Agreed, Margaret Lee. And I have to say, in some of these cases, it's really hard to presume innocence. Some of these cases, it's pretty clear what happened. I'm going to tell you something. I am very uncomfortable with this trial against Charlie Adelson. Now, I do have to be, I think I don't, I'm not one of those people that believes that all law enforcement is corrupt and bad and evil and all that. That it's a kind of a rare thing for it to cross my mind. Like I think there was some inept terms of like local police in the case of Suzanne Morphew, Barry Morphew. I think some of the local police, maybe they just didn't have the experience. I think on a larger scale, I think there is corruption in Colorado that affected the prosecution of Barry Morphew. But in this particular case, I see a lot bigger problems. In fact, so the two hitmen, one of them went to trial, was found guilty. The other one made a plea deal, right? And the guy that was found guilty, his baby mama, it took two trials for her to be found guilty. The first trial, it was a hung jury. And this is supposedly the woman who arranged everything and was getting payment for the murders. And it took two juries before they could get a verdict. So I do know that there have been some really, really, really good podcasts. There are some really good YouTube channels. They're smaller channels, but they're good. There's a couple where there's a couple of attorneys that are discussing the case. Even though this is a really big case in Florida, it's gotten some attention on court TV and whatnot. YouTube really hasn't kind of picked it up and gone crazy with it yet. They're going to, because it's going to be a hell of a trial. But I think there's a hope for a defense here. I know that we're going to start out today listening to the police interrogations of the ex-wife's, Charlie Adelson's sister, Wendy, her boyfriend, Jeffrey LaCase. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you, Jeffrey, if you're listening, I'm having a hard time with things that you said. And I don't mind, being very respectful about it. But I don't know, Jeffrey. I think there was some sour grapes. I'm a little nervous about your interactions with the jury. It reminded me very, very much of Amber Heard and her performance on the stand. And I could be completely wrong. I could be so off base, but I'm very uncomfortable with the testimony of Jeffrey LaCase. Now, by comparison, I also watched the early police investigation by Wendy Adelson as soon as she's finding out that her ex-husband has been shot. And in the beginning, she thinks he's already dead. And then they say, no, he's still alive. And you can see like this immediate hope. And she seems really authentic in that shock moment, right? That grief. And it seems really authentic and true. And I don't have that same feeling with some of the things that Jeffrey LaCase has done. And what I find to be incredibly interesting is while Wendy Adelson basically says, I wonder if someone who cares about me did this. And then they said, oh, you're talking about your brother, your family. She's like, no. And then eventually she does suggest that maybe Jeffrey LaCase should be investigated. Yeah. And the timeline of their relationship ending and the death of Dan Markle looks like it might be an acting out moment. And then magically, Jeffrey LaCase finally, a year later, March of 2015, he has this sudden insight that, oh gosh, I think Wendy was involved in the shooting death of her ex-husband. So it is incredibly interesting case. It's one of those, the Murdaugh case. We all knew the truth. It was not hard to get to a guilty verdict in the Murdaugh case. This is different. And if you're watching the podcast, if you're listening to the channels talking about this, you won't think that. You'll listen and you'll think, oh, wow, it's another slam dunk case. Why is the dude fighting it? All this kind of stuff, right? But when you start actually going back and reading documents, you start going back, you pull up the interrogations and watch them. You go start looking at the timeline. Then you're kind of going, okay, wait a minute. Wait, you guys may feel like this is a slam dunk. We may be a little off base here with the whole slam dunk thing. I still think definitely there's a big chance for a guilty verdict. Don't get me wrong. But this is going to be an interesting one, in my opinion, to watch because we do have that possibility of kind of one of those Casey Anthony moments, right? There's the possibility that they may pull a rabbit out of the hat. Now, I will tell you this. Charlie Adelson's attorney, his lead attorney, he's a hot shot. He's a Clemson. He was Ivy School education and Clemson graduate. He knows what he's doing. He's not a court-appointed attorney. He's a big guy. The attorney that is representing Wendy Adelson is actually also representing Donald Trump in his defense on, I think it's the Georgia case. So this, Charlie Adelson is a very successful surgeon, a periodontist, and business guy, entrepreneur, and he has the cash to buy the best attorneys money can buy. So this is a showdown. The prosecutors, two women, the prosecutors have stellar reputations and are absolutely amazing. Okay. This is the battle of the Titans on both sides of the aisle, both the defense and the prosecutors. So if you haven't gotten into this case, you need to start looking into it because this is going to be a crazy case. I will tell you this too. Today was the third day of jury selection. They believed that they would have a jury seated and that they may have even started with opening statements this afternoon. Did not happen. In fact, they needed a whole new group of 20 jurors. They could not seat a jury after 3 days. Or was it 2 days? 2 or 3 days. They could not seat a jury. So many people have heard this. so many people either know Dan Markle or they know Jeff Lacasse, or they know Wendy, or they know the Adelsons. They're really struggling. And on the first day, yes, she is DB. She is an attorney as well. Yes. The second day of jury selection, the attorneys for the defense asked the judge to move this out of Tallahassee, to maybe move this trial down towards South Florida, that they might have a better hope of seating a jury. And the judge said no, that they were not going to do that. So they can take as long as they need to find a suitable jury. And this judge is really invested in, hearing this case right here in Tallahassee. And so they're moving forward, but they got another day. So very, very interesting. So I decided the way that I want to start this coverage is I want to start with, I got to change. Hold on just a second. I've got my overlay it is a rather attractive overlay, but it is blocking our video that we're going to watch. And there's our video. Okay. So we're just going to start. Let me give you the link in the, this is probably the biggest channel. I'm kind of guessing here. This is probably the biggest channel that is covering this case. I'm going to put a link to the channel so that you can go and subscribe. Yeah, Gregory. Yeah, and they're powerhouse attorneys, so it's going to be very interesting to watch them. Okay. There you go. Okay, so that is the link to Deep Dive True Crime. Okay, so Deep Dive True Crime, and I'm going to hit subscribe, and I'm going to hit the like or the thumbs up. And then we're going to watch, well, there was one thing I wanted to say. Hold on. So these recorded interviews happened. You may want to start a little notebook, because this can be as confusing as the Vallow Daybell cases. That's how many players are in this whole thing. It's crazy. So if you want to start a notebook, these interviews with Jeffrey Lacasse were July 21st, 2014, July 23rd, 2014, and then March the 6th, 2015. And I find this date to be really interesting, this March 6th, 2015 date. It's very, very interesting, and here's why. Because even though Wendy and Jeffrey, they met and kind of started going out just sort of casually, like in September of 2013. Okay. It was very casual, very limited contact. But then by February or March, took them about 6 or 8 months to get to a point where they decided, okay, we're boyfriend and girlfriend, right? So it was kind of slow going, I think, for this age group and everything. So by March, by Jeffrey Lacasse's own words, by March of 2014, they were boyfriend, girlfriend. And then guess when they broke up? This is a red flag for me. Okay. It's a red flag. They broke up in, well, apparently June the 28th or so, even though the final, okay, we're done, didn't happen until July. But by June the 28th, the end of June, this relationship had burned itself out. So they call themselves a couple in March. And within 3 months, she's saying, I don't want to date you anymore. So what happened? Did she decide that this wasn't a good relationship for her, that it wasn't something that she was comfortable in? And was he angry about it? Did he feel like he had been slighted, or did he feel like sort of like jaded? Well, it's very interesting because when he's on the stand, he's talking about Wendy, talking about her cheating, not being loyal and faithful, as if they were in a 15-year marriage. And he really had only been dating her, well, very casually from September to March. And then from March to June, which is only a few months, that they were boyfriend girlfriend. So was he overly controlling? Does Jeffrey LaCase have a jealous streak? Was he maybe he wanted to be able to control her more than what she was willing or allowing him to do? And it's a question I have. I do not know the answer at all. Moonchild Pink says that Mentor Lawyer is great and he is local to Tallahassee. So, and I, this is, am I right, Moonchild and Phoebe? Is this probably the biggest channel covering this case? Would that be, do you think that's true? I don't think I found a channel with more subscribers. I think his is kind of the biggest channel that is following the case, right? They had a date the week of the murder. Well, yeah, they had a date in well, didn't she ended the relationship, and 5 days later, Dan Markle is dead, right? So she said no contact before he was dead, I believe. Or no, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe the 28th they went out. She said she needed a week or something to herself. Then they had one more date, and it was very awkward, and that was the end, right? Oh, okay. All right. So many newer channels are misreporting. Oh yeah, Phoebe and Moonchild. Look, if you guys want to get up to speed on this case, for sure, deep dive true crime. This is the channel that has the authentic, factual information. Mentor Lawyers doing a great job, and I want to be very clear. All right, I don't want to be misquoted or misunderstood. I'm going to be very clear that these other guys are doing such a great job on the case. I love listening to all of them. I love the lady attorney that's doing the coverage. Her name's Katie, I think. But I'm looking at this from a different angle than they are, and it doesn't mean that I think that they are wrong. I in no way. People that have been covering this case for years and years, I would never be so arrogant to say, "Oh, you guys all have it wrong and I've got it right." Not a bit, not at all. It is. I like cases where there is reasonable doubt. I like cases where there's a question mark in that case that really looks interesting. And for me, in this case, I think Jeffrey LaCase is the question mark, at least for me. He's the question mark. She told Jeff no more contact. So no contact until after her ex was killed. She was framing him, I believe. Hitmen rented similar car to Jeffrey LaCase. Yeah, so I know that is one of the angles that the channels have covered and have talked about. Agreed. But I think that some of the evidence that people have talked about that they felt like implicated people in the Adelson family, I don't see it as being so slam dunk. Like there's some comments that were made at the restaurant that people seem to think really implicated them. But for me, I listened and I thought, gosh, that That actually sounds like words that someone would say if they were not guilty or not involved, right? So that's why I love this case, is because everybody's right. there, there's it's so hard to put your finger on, even though it definitely looks like it's going to be a guilty verdict. Okay, there are some things that I think are a big problem, and I think Jeffrey LaCase's testimony is a big problem. I do. So I am going to try really hard to be respectful of the veterans in this case, because you guys have done years. I mean, this is a case that's been going on. And if I misstate something, y'all, please tell me I'm wrong, okay? Because I'd rather be corrected than to go forward with an incorrect narrative. But this is a case that is 9-10 years old at this point, right? So not quite 10 years, but getting close. And so there are people that have been following this, y'all, for longer than some of your kids are alive. So these people really know the subtleties of the evidence and the dates and timeline. They know all of this. And I'm coming on late, and I'm being very clear to say the thing that made me really, really interested in this case was when I saw in the interviews with the professor, Jeffrey LaCase. All right. So little intrigue and mystery is always interesting in a court trial. And I do think this particular case has so much intrigue and so much mystery. There is plenty that looks like good, solid evidence. There's also plenty that is, I could make a case for the defense, right? And then you add into this the fact that some of this just looks sort of manipulated and contrived. And then you couple that with the fact that these are two powerhouse families. Both families, the Markells and the Adelsons, very intelligent people. All the kids are very accomplished. This is a humdinger. It is a humdinger. All right, so here we go, and this is Jeffrey LaCase, who is a professor at Florida State University. He is a psychologist. I don't think he's a licensed psychologist. He does research. He researches psychiatric medications and treatment groups, outcome studies, and things like that. So, all right, here we go. I'm going to be quiet now. If y'all cannot hear it, put a 2 in the chat.
I told you all that in my head. I come to the conclusion, as you said a minute ago, that she was at least aware this was going to happen, and I think probably involved in it.
Okay. Now look at the date on this. This is March 2015, right? There's bad blood under the bridge here between Wendy and this guy, Jeffrey. So why exactly does it take this guy months and months and months to come to the police and say, oh, she totally did it? It's very uncomfortable. And this is the best part of the whole thing. My confidence in Dr. LaCase just went downhill from this statement. Anne Marie says, it's odd Wendy would open up so much to a Jeffrey. Anne Marie, you can come sit over here with me, okay? Thank you for saying this. It is odd that Wendy would open up so much to Jeffrey about her brother wanting to hire a hitman a year earlier or buy her a TV. I guess that was true because Wendy testified that her brother did, in fact, buy the TV. I'm going to tell you something, Anne Marie. I absolutely don't. I do not doubt, not a minute, that her brother Charlie did say, I looked in hiring a hitman for you, but a TV is cheaper. That does sound like a tongue in cheek, kind of playful, I love my sister and I know this guy has hurt you and I want you to feel better kind of statement. It really does. I do not think that those types of statements ever point to, hey guys, let's go find a killer. People that are about to commit a conspiracy to have someone murdered, they actually get very quiet about it, correct? You're not going to announce to everybody that you're fixing to go kill someone. That's silly. So thank you, Anne-Marie, because that was one of my things I kept saying was, wait a minute. So what if he said that? Is that the same thing as, hey, I'm going to hire a hitman? No, it's just a friendly relationship. And he's trying to say, I love you and I'm sorry you're hurting. And I hope that you enjoy your TV. Right? All right. So let's see. Jeff was interviewed 2 days after the murder. Yes, Phoebe. Yes. Okay. So let's go forward.
Okay. All right. Mr. Latas, I appreciate you coming in and talking with me here. Like I said, we're still in the preliminary stages of this investigation.
Yeah.
Your name did come up
Of course.
because you were associated at some point with Wendy,
Of course.
which is his ex-wife, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
So basically just, I appreciate you coming in.
Sure.
I want to ask you some questions, kind of figure out where you were, if you've heard anything, if you have any information that would be helpful to us.
Yeah.
Just kind of run that whole gamut. Okay, so.
Can I ask one question before you get started? Is this,
I'm sorry.
is this on the record as I give you
Yeah,
this statement?
it's on the record.
Is there any opportunity to talk off the record, or that's not possible?
No, it's possible.
Okay, we do on the record first, and I have a couple theoretical things that
Sure.
I want to be quoted on, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that Windrush Village?
It is.
Apartment 41?
Mm-hmm.
How do you like the neighborhood over there?
It's cheap. It's $500 a month. I'm saving for a house. So.
Oh, okay. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
I used to live right over there off of Claremont.
Yeah, sure,
Which
sure.
is right there across the road from
That's
us.
right.
So, well, like you said, it's kind of cheap over there.
Yeah.
That's where I first moved when I got out of college. But
Gotcha.
anyway, that's neither here nor there. Do you have any contact numbers that I can reach you at? Should I need to talk to you later?
Sure.
I think I talked to you on a 294 number.
That's the number. That's the only number I have.
That's your number.
Yeah.
Okay, I got that one. Just tell me a little bit about yourself as far as your background and stuff like that, and kind of what you and Wendy.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually got my PhD here at Florida State from 2000 2008.
Okay.
Graduated from FSU, went to Arizona for 5 years. This is my first year back. So I met Wendy maybe a month after I got back. Met her in September of 2013.
Okay.
We were set up on a date by a mutual friend I work with.
I would love to know who that is. Who set them up?
Dr. Jane, I know you've met Jane. So.
I haven't.
Oh, you have someone met Jane. She was in here when Wendy did her long 9-hour day.
Okay, and I take it you've talked to somebody about that because you know about it?
I talked to Jane for 5 minutes. I've been out of town.
Okay.
And Wendy and I are estranged at the moment, so it's pretty bad timing in terms of that. So I can get to that as I get to the tail end of it.
Sure.
So we started dating in September, did it all through the fall.
Okay.
Wasn't serious back then. She was dating other people as well. Came back from Christmas break, had a conversation, decided to date more seriously. And by March 1, we're a couple, we're girlfriend, boyfriend.
By March of 2014?
Yeah. And then spent a lot of time with Wendy. I don't think anybody's been with Wendy more than me the last 6 months.
Okay.
She has 2 kids. I've been over there, I'd say 80 or 90% of the nights I'm over there. And every single night that she doesn't have the kids, with maybe just 1 or 2 exceptions, if she's in town, I've slept over. So I spent a lot of time with her. We had some problems.
Where's that at?
Now, when he's on the stand, by this point, where after March of 2014, they're saying that they're a couple, they're boyfriend, girlfriend, whatnot. It's supposed to be exclusive, I guess. On the stand, he says that she would have long hours of time where she would go missing, not coming in until very late at night, all hours of the night, no accountability for where she's gone. Well, Dr. Jeffrey just told us that they were playing Little House on the Prairie and that life was great and they were madly in love, and he's spending 80-90% of the nights over at her house when she's in town. So they're right there. It's a very important distinction between what he says in the immediate aftermath of the murder compared to, the trials that came later. So it's very, to me, that is interesting. Come on.
That's 3303 Aqua Ridge Way in Corn. Always at her house, never at mine. I got a shitty apartment, as you know. We ran into some problems in May and June. Started fighting.
And I'm not here to get into your personal life,
Yeah, but I think it may bear. Go ahead.
but given the severity of this incident,
Yes.
I mean, I am going to pry a little bit. I hope you
Try
don't
as
get
much as
offended by that.
I'm not offended.
Ultimately, I mean, what our goal is to find out who did this and
I know.
bring them to
No,
justice.
I get it. I get it.
So,
So anything you need to ask. That helps me because I don't want to volunteer my BS. But if it's not useful to you, so tell me what's useful to you. If anything you want to.
yeah, and with that, I'll just tell me everything, and I'll write down what's useful and discard the rest.
Okay.
So what kind of problems were you getting into in May and June? Was it?
Yeah. Jeez, that's gonna be public. This is fucked up.
Wait, what was that?
I said this. If this goes public, is just I know how this works.
Yes, you do, don't you, Jeffrey? Jeffrey.
I was just same thing. I was just trying to say, look.
Jeffrey knows.
Again, both of us will move on.
Jeffrey knows how this works, quote unquote. And one of the things that bothers me quite a bit is that Jeffrey knows all the lingo, right? So as I'm listening to him, it is as if he is, I don't know. It seems like, okay, how do I say this? Seems like he's intentionally dropping all the buzzwords that we would use in a clinical assessment. And so as he's describing Wendy and what she's like and who she is, it's as if he is describing her following a clinical interview. Like he's doing the psychological evaluation on her. And he's sending a message to the interrogators or the police interviewers. It seems like he is implanting doubt into their mind. Like he is intentionally trying to paint this picture of a woman who is erratic and out of control. And we don't get that from anyone else. No one else describes Wendy like that. So it bothers me a little bit or a lot. And I think it's important. I think when this man, who is a statistician, he's a researcher, he's not a clinical psychologist, he's not working directly with patients. And when he starts throwing around terms like, oh, well, yes, that's crazy making. That's a very specific term that comes out of like the research, like on narcissism. It just made me very uneasy that he describes an erratic, out of control, out of touch, hysterical female, personality disordered female. he describes that, and yet the evidence of Wendy's life is that Wendy was very calm and methodical, and that she was able to perform at a high level of accomplishment and achievement. So what skin in the game does Jeffrey Lacoste have in July of 2014, days after the death of Dan Markle? What skin in the game does he have that he's invested in painting a clinical picture of a woman that he's been dating for a year? You see what I mean? It seems subversive. It seems like he has an agenda. It's very uncomfortable to me. All right. Here we go. Come on, computer. Oh, my computer's so bogged down.
Here, you know, but she wanted me to just roll over, and it's a little too stubborn. Didn't trust her anymore. It's damage beyond repair, probably. I was in love with this girl, man, so it's hard. Maybe with the kids, like a co-parent, basically. It was really rough.
How old are the kids?
3 and 4.
He was like a co-parent. Stay with me here, okay? They were dating casually from about September, October to March. And then in March, they decide to get serious. But then within 12 weeks, the relationship is gone. Well, Jeffrey, I think saying you were like a co-parent, I think it's a little bit more intimate than what it might have actually been. That seems it. I do know that people get all caught up in lust, and they can very quickly fall into a close, intimate relationship within just a few weeks and whatnot. But it's not really typical for people to bring their children into these fast growing, chaotic relationships. So maybe you did meet the kids, and maybe you were there, in the evenings and whatnot. But the fact that you would feel like after only a couple of months of even knowing the kids, he says he didn't meet the kids until like March. So from March, and then within 10 or 12 weeks, they're breaking up. How close can you get to someone else's kids? So again, this was another one of those comments that on its face value, maybe it doesn't look very nefarious, but it feels manipulative to me. Made me really uncomfortable to hear that. It's far too intimate of a description than what the time frame may actually reveal.
Better Lincoln. So the next night, and by the way, while she's in South Florida, she is completely miserable. She gets depressed, she gets anxious, and she's got her baggage. But
now, he's saying right here, when she is in South Florida, isn't that where Donna is? Phoebe and it isn't. Hey, bling is the new black. Thank you so much for that research fund, girl. I appreciate that. You're very kind. Thank you. Moonchild and Phoebe, and those of you that have been following this case, Bling has been on this case a long time. Didn't he say on the stand, y'all tell me if I'm wrong, okay? Call my bluff. Do not let me say something that is untrue, okay? Didn't he say on the stand that she was miserable in Tallahassee, and that the whole reason that Dan Markle had to die is because she had to go back down to South Florida to be with her family and a higher paying job, I believe, too, right? So is that correct? Do I have that right? Yes, Wendy's parents and brother Charlie live in Miami, South Florida. Wendy went to Miami often. Exactly, Phoebe. So explain to me, riddle me this. Why is now at the one of the very first interviews that Jeffrey has on July the 21st, why is Jeffrey telling the cops that when Wendy is in South Florida, she's miserable. What? Jeffrey, I don't know what you're talking about, big guy, because you have been telling us that she was miserable in Tallahassee and that she couldn't wait to get to South Florida. And all of the newspapers during Katie Magabenoa's second trial, all the newspapers in Florida were saying, oh, thank God for Jeffrey Lacasse, because Wendy gets up on the stand and she tells all manner of lies. And then the white knight in shining armor comes up, Jeffrey Lacasse, and he goes against her lies and he corrects her lies. She says on the stand, Wendy says, no, I was glad to stay in Tallahassee. I think her word was, I was relieved. Now, I don't think Donna Adelson was relieved. I don't think Harvey Adelson was relieved. I think Grandma and Grandpa were furious that they could not get their grandkids back to South Miami where they wanted to be. I think they were pushing the narrative, saying, Wendy, you got to come back down here. You got to be with family and you need help with the kids and you got a better paying job because we pulled strings and we got you a better paying job. Get on down here, girl. And then Dan files papers and said, you can't take my kids off. I won't see them. And when the judge came back and said, no, you cannot go legally by order of law, you cannot go to Miami. You must stay in Tallahassee. And what did Wendy say on the stand? She said, and I quote, I was relieved. Is it possible that Wendy didn't want to be under the controlling thumb of her mom and dad? Is that possible? I know that Rob, the brother, not Charlie, but the other brother, he stayed in Texas because he was mad at his parents. His parents forced him to give up, to not marry the woman that he loved more than anything in the world because she wasn't Jewish. So I don't know if you guys have ever known anybody that had really enmeshed parents and parents that were super controlling. I can certainly believe that a young woman who had always been micromanaged by a very powerful mom, that the mom is demanding that she get her butt back down and live where she says she has to live. And a judge say, no, you can't go. You have to stay here. Relieved is a word I could accept. Relieved is a word I could accept. All right, get on down here, girl. There you go. So Jeffrey, now, how many times already, and we're just minutes into this interview, how many times already are there contradictions? I'm talking about direct contradictions between what he testified to in the trial and what he says in these initial interviews. It's fascinating, y'all. It's absolutely fascinating. Let's see. I saw a comment here. Here it is. No, Jules, he was talking about July 1 through July 13th only. He has the text to prove what he is saying. Well, yeah, but I mean, he clearly says when she's in South Florida, she's miserable. But then when he's on the witness stand, he's saying that in Tallahassee, she's miserable. But then he backpedals on that even. And he says, well, she didn't actually say she wanted to be in Miami. You could just tell she wasn't very happy. So there's a backpedal there.
Never
even though we didn't have much contact, I never heard her as bad as she was this trip to South Florida. I mean, this blew up her world.
And how do you know she was in a bad place?
Just because when we talked, she was just.
So she did call you like.
Yeah. 14 days, I got 3 phone calls.
When did you contact Jane?
Contacted Jane on Saturday when I was emailed that Danny had been shot. I called Jane and I said, hey, I don't know if I should contact Wendy or not. This seems like this is way more important than a stupid no contact email.
And I believe, if I'm correct about this, Dr. Jane is the lady that is in the interrogation room with Wendy on, she had like an 8 or 9 hour interview with the police on the day that Markle was shot. And she called her, or they called her friend, and she came to offer support and to help. And I think that's Jane. That must be their mutual friend.
And she said, yeah, just email, just text her. And I sent her just a nice text saying, you know, I care a lot about you and the kids. If you need anything, I know we're in a strange place, but if you need anything, please let me know. I'm always here. She didn't even text back.
When was that?
That was Saturday 2 p.m.
Well, I mean, she's got a lot on her mind right now.
She does, but the thing was, she's texting with Jane. She's calling other mutual friends. She's in touch with lots of other people.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
this may be too messy for her.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to.
I wouldn't take that personal.
No, I'm not.
At this point.
No, I'm not. I know she's in a mess. I sent her a book for her little kids about bereavement from Amazon, and that'd be the last contact I have. So.
All right, you sent a text on Saturday
2 p.m.
to her.
What happened?
It went unanswered.
Yep. And then I'm on the phone with Jane 5 minutes later, and Jane's like, oh, I'm getting a text from Wendy. So I know she was around,
Her phone was working.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why the law of attraction does not work for most people. Now, to manifest anything, you must ask, then receive. Right.
Okay.
So that's
Do you know if she's dating anyone else?
I'm going to have to speculate a little bit.
Okay. That's fine. Like I said, we're investigating any and all leads.
So if you're looking for a potential love triangle, if that's the issue, like, you know, someone that would.
We're still, we're still trying to figure all this out.
Yeah. It's weird because I don't want to sound just like the jealous boyfriend, you know what I mean?
We're taking all that into consideration
okay,
too. And I mean,
okay. There's going to be a lot of men that are enamored of Wendy, that are really into Wendy and feel protective over Wendy. And there's a few.
Okay, so Wendy did talk about taking the boys to go see Dan at the hospital. She initially, they tell her that he's been shot, you know, and all that. She kind of goes along for a while as if she believes that he's dead. And then somebody comes in and says something and lets it out that he's actually still living, but that he's not expected to make it through the night. That, or if he does survive for a little while, there's so much massive head injury that he'll never be a functioning person again. And during that period of time, she says, you mean he's alive? And it kind of takes her by surprise. And so then she talks about taking the kids to go and see him. And so she says, you know, I should take the kids. And then they have this conversation about, well, number one, he does, you can't see him, that because that's when she learns that he was shot in the head. And so she's shocked. And then the cop, the interviewer, the detective says something like, well, you wouldn't want your children to see him in that condition, yada, yada. So she did actually talk about taking the boys to go and see the dad. She did do that.
Of them. I don't know which of these guys she's going to say, oh, that's just a friend. And that's true. I don't know. But I'm, skeptical.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You say she can kind of put men under a spell.
Absolutely.
For lack of a better term.
No, it's true. It's true. I was caught, yeah.
Who's the guy that is like totally that guy, just out of sorts, not himself, would do anything for her?
See, I don't think it's.
Do you think there's anybody like that out there?
Well, I wonder. You guys would have access to find out that. I've always suspected there's a guy in South Florida because not getting my phone calls returned, all this kind of stuff. And she goes to South Florida a lot.
Okay.
And there's a weird pattern of behavior. And so my suspicion has always been that there was a guy in South Florida. I wouldn't know who that was.
All right.
You do, Jeffrey? You want to know who that was? I mean, you say that in a really proprietary manner. That worries me a little bit, right? Because at this point, they're now several weeks into, we're probably not going to stay together. We're probably breaking up. I need no contact for 7 days. I'm not coming home right now. I need some time. It's as if she's trying to kind of get him to back off without making him angry. And some of these words that he says bother me. And this one bothers me. I want to know who it is. But Jeffrey, here's the problem. You don't know anyone in South Florida. You don't know anyone down there. So if you know who it is or you don't know who it is, how does that change anything for you? The reality is that the dating relationship with you doesn't work for her. She doesn't want to date you. So how this kind of angry kind of, I want to know who it is, it's a little uncomfortable.
Can you tell me where you were like up to and immediately after Friday?
Yeah, absolutely. Thursday night, I was very upset about all this, and I was going to Tennessee on Friday or Saturday. I had big plans. I called my friend and said, I'm really upset. He said, get in your car and drive. So Thursday at 7-ish, I just started driving north on 319 to get to 75. I drove probably halfway to Tennessee, stayed in a suburb of Atlanta Thursday night. Friday, I drove to Tennessee, Harrogate, Tennessee. And I just got back.
So when you drove, what'd you drive? Your vehicle?
My car, my 2004 Nissan Sentra.
And you said you stopped in the suburb of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Where was that?
Can't remember. I stayed at a really crappy Days Inn, maybe 20 miles south of Atlanta.
$20 miles south of Atlanta.
Yeah, roughly. I could pull up a credit card receipt if you really need to know.
Pay with a credit card?
Yeah. Use my credit card on the whole trip. And I stayed with a very close friend up there and his wife. So I stayed at their house.
Okay. Okay, so if you let me get a timeline.
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
So Thursday you started driving. You drove up to roughly Atlanta.
Yeah, about 11:30 I pulled over. Yeah, it's getting tired.
All right, what time did you get up and leave?
Oh, I left at 9 a.m. I couldn't sleep that night. I was upset about Wendy. So I probably was up watching TV till 2:30 and I got up at 8:15 and I took a shower, got out of there at 9.
What time did you check out? 9?
I didn't check out. Just one of those crappy food bag hotels. Just got in my car. And I'm in Tennessee by 2:30.
And then when did you start coming back?
I left Sunday at about 10:30. Stopped in Kennesaw, Georgia, stayed the night with a friend, and just got back.
I talked to my boss as far as whatever you wanted to talk about off the record.
Yeah.
And she gave me the answer that I kind of expected she would. And ultimately, it depends on what it is you're going to say. Because if it's something that's an instrumental to the investigation, it can't really be off the record because, I mean, we're trying to solve a
I
guy's
know,
homicide
I
here.
know. It's hearsay. It's tertiary hearsay. I don't know if that's useful.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. Somebody told me, somebody else told me.
Yeah, I mean, and you'd have to tell me what it was, and I would have to say, okay, is this something that can be excluded from the report, or is it something that's inculpatory? Is it something that's?
Maybe I can just make it simpler than that. Maybe I can just say, I would be investigating Charlie Adelson.
Okay.
Maybe it's that simple.
What makes you say that?
And
again, and here's another thing. We're talking to a lot of people
sure you
here,
are. Sure you are.
and you're just telling us what you think,
Sure.
and everybody else is doing the same
Of
thing,
course.
and that's
right.
okay.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
What we're trying to do is just get all the puzzle pieces before we start trying to put the puzzle together.
Yeah.
We're still in the stages of getting all the pieces.
I got you.
So why do you think it would be pertinent for us to investigate Charlie?
He's very angry about Danny. And if you met, I know he's down there, you can't get him in front of you, but you're, experienced investigator. If you got in front of this guy, he'd set off your radar, set off mine. I used to do juvenile justice, I used to do forensic psychiatry. He set off my radar a little bit. He's a weird guy, strange guy. He's a conduct disorder kid, and he hates Danny. And see if I can put it a little vaguely, or not. But just
Why do you want to be vague now?
Let's go with what you know specifically.
Wendy had reported to me that Charlie had considered all the options possible to take care of this problem. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And when she said it,
When did she disclose this to you?
I don't remember when, but she said it was chilling because she said, "Can I tell you something confidentially?" And I said, "Sure." She said, "I think Charlie kind of looked into some options, like literally saw how and why and how you would do this if you did it." I think this was last summer when she had her petition to relocate denied. That family wants her back there so bad.
And this is when she disclosed this to you, was last summer?
No. This is when.
This is when
Charlie had been examining all the options.
Okay.
He's a very successful dentist, but he reeks of antisocial behavior.
Wow.
I could be 100% wrong, but I wouldn't want to miss that if I was investigating it. He's got a close friend who's a ex-special forces guy, like a Navy SEAL or something he hangs out with all the time.
What did she say to you specifically? I mean, when you say
She said,
all options.
she said, Charlie, I can't remember exactly, but it had something to do with the amount of money it would cost to have someone killed.
What did she say?
Okay, so Jeffrey, I'm struggling here. Okay, here's what I'm struggling with. These are some very, very heavy accusations that you're making against a guy that you have met once. You said, and I quote, "Oh, well, he's a conduct disordered kid. He reeks of antisocial." Those are really big things to say. And then I don't really know what the point of, oh, he hangs out with this ex-special forces guy. This is very similar to Barry Morphew saying, "Oh, I got a friend who knows all this stuff, did 400 tours of duty in Afghanistan or Iraq or something." And everybody who is actually military or ex-military, they all just sort of looked at each other and said, "Did he say 400 tours of duty? What? What are you talking about?" So, isn't it interesting that you get the same type of characterization of people? They're talking in symbols. It's symbolic language rather than just stating what they know. Oh, yeah. Is a special forces guy. You know, those Navy SEALs guy, they can kill you in a second and then go have a turkey dinner, right? That's sending a message of lethal, antisocial killer without actually saying it. Well, if you have reason to believe that Charlie Adelson's friend that he hangs out with is a killer, a hitman, or whatever you're trying to imply through your use of symbolic language, why don't you just say that? Why do you have to attribute it to actually a really elite group of people that have really specialized skills that most people look up to and admire? So it's this characterization of Charlie. He's a conduct disordered kid, and he reeks of antisocial personality disorder. But this guy met him once, y'all. One time. The question mark always matters as to why I respect Jules for always questioning. It's not conspiracy, it's common sense applied, which always matters. Thank you, Blonde PT. Did someone call me a conspiracy theorist? Who's calling me a conspiracy theorist? Lawyer covering this trial is La Belle V. She explains the legal issues, great, and has a tour of South Beach to places they talk about. Court TV has a great summary last week. And I agree, Anne Marie's point on setting boundaries, that perhaps Wendy Adelson had grown up in a home where there was a great deal of family enmeshment, and mom and dad, mom was fairly controlling, powerful female. And so Wendy learned to be compliant and to fulfill expectations of the people that loved her. And it can be very hard to learn how to stand up for yourself if you go from that type of, matriarchal family to then living with a man who is described by someone who worked with him daily. The very first word is abrasive. Yes, Dan Markle is described as abrasive, hard to get along with at times. Okay. So I really don't think Jeff's testimony will be the thing that gets Charlie. Jeff said Wendy was constantly talking about Charlie. I must say, I really never thought maybe Jeff was lying. All right. So here's why Jeff's testimony or his interviews and such are so of such interest to me, Moonchild. Because he's the guy with the spotlight on Charlie Adelson. He's the first guy to say, look down there. There's your culprit right there. He's the guy. He's the one. Don't look up here. Don't look up here around Tallahassee. Nobody did anything here in Tallahassee. This came from down there in South Florida. Now, I've seen the evidence against the two hitmen and all that. And I agree that evidence is strong and whatnot. But here's what's interesting to me. I was on this deep dive for Dan Markle and the work that he was doing in New York. And we're going to do that on another night because that's a whole story all by itself. But he was working with this really strange, violent, it's kind of like a gang of Jewish rabbis is a one way to describe it. And in Jewish law, I don't really want to go into it now because it's a whole video all by itself. But basically, Dan Markle was working on this prosecution of a group of Jewish rabbis who would threaten and actually carry out physical bodily harm on men that refused to give their wives a divorce. Like these were literally rabbis that would go in and break somebody's knees because that person was refusing to give the wife a Jewish divorce. so this was a very violent group of people, and they were using it. Some could argue they were using it for good because they were trying to help women that were not able to get divorces and such. But they were using some very aggressive and illegal, some illegal means to do that. So it's very easy to see that Dan Markle could have actually crossed paths with people that would have been capable of killing him, right? That would have been able to harm him. And so to me, that is another line of potential doubt, is that he had been actively involved in this prosecution. And there were a lot of powerful Jewish leaders that were not happy with Dan Markle at the time. So it was interesting to me as I'm looking into this, and my mind is going to, well, I wonder what kind of investigating they did in New York. I wonder if detectives went up to New York and asked some questions and looked around, right? And then you listen to this, and Jeffrey is indicting Charlie Adelson right here on the spot. And then he goes on after he says, oh, he was a conduct disordered child. He just reeked of antisocial personality disorder. But he met the guy one time. So I thought, golly, how did you learn so much about this guy in one meeting, that that he had conduct disorder as a little kid, and that then blew into full-fledged, antisocial personality disorder? And do we have what kind of adult behaviors that show this antisocial behavior, that you would reach this diagnostic criteria to make that type of assessment? So let's listen and see. He must know something about Charlie Adelson.
Something like that, some statement like that. I can't remember.
Did she give you a dollar amount?
But that's the other thing. He's a dentist, but he's an independent businessman. He has a bunch of practices, and he's a Ferrari. I think he's a millionaire.
And he's a surgeon. He's not a dentist. He's a surgeon.
And wow, this might screw them. I got from me talking to him myself in the hot tub one time, from a few things Wendy said.
When was this?
March 15th-ish. I was there for the one day with him. I'm staying at his house.
Of this year?
Yes. Wendy and him were talking. I'm just listening. I just met him an hour earlier. We're sitting in the hot tub having a beer. It's a really nice house. And I guess this is what occurred.
Was anybody else in the hot tub with you guys?
Not during this part of the conversation. Another guy, his roommate, came in eventually, and then just started to talk about girls and stuff like that. But
women.
And I'm not trying to play cop here, but I do know one thing you'd be looking for is a lump sum of money moving around, and some kind of crazy stuff happened. And I think there's a lot of financial irregularities. I think there's a lot of tax fraud kind of stuff, and putting stuff in different people's names.
Now he's a tax.
I don't know exactly what, but he's not doing anything on the up and up in his finances. It was pretty clear. He was pretty open about that.
So okay. So it's tax fraud too, huh?
How the exact conversation in the hot tub go?
He was just talking about, I put that in dad's name, I put that in mom's name, and it was just clear that
hiding resources.
Yeah.
Monetary resources.
Yeah. So if you have to do an investigation, that's something you guys should know, because I think there's a lot of, I don't know if it's illegal, but I know there's a lot of, he plays the system,
Oh, okay. He also plays the system, guys.
So appropriate. We're sitting, please don't write this down. He's so appropriate. We're sitting in the hot tub, and he starts talking about sex acts with his girlfriend that he did to punish her for bad behavior in front of his sister. I'm like, and I didn't know what to do. I just met him, protected with my girlfriend. This is just so weird, It's like this guy's, his social radar is way off. His sense of right or wrong, just norms is just off. He set off my radar. Now, I don't know if he did this. But if you're looking at somebody, don't miss him. And I could also see him doing this without ever telling Wendy he didn't do it. I can see Wendy being innocent, puzzled,
Let me tell you why the law of attraction does not
Wow.
work for most people.
Wow.
Now, to manifest
So
anything, you must
uncomfortable.
ask, then receive. Right.
What do y'all think? Does it feel comfortable? It does. It's really, I do, again, I feel like I have to reiterate, I've seen the testimony by the trigger guy, by the guy that took the plea deal. I watched the whole trial with Katie, and I heard the recordings and the emails. I've seen all. I've looked at all of it. I've seen it all. I'm very uncomfortable with Jeffrey. However, let me say this. It's entirely possible that everything that they say about Charlie Adelson is correct, that he 100% did this, no doubt. And Jeffrey LaCase is still jealous of Charlie, right? That both things, they're not mutually exclusive. Both of those things can occur at the same time. So I'm open. Again, I have not been following this case for a decade. And there are people that have, like Phoebe and Moonlight Rose. But specifically for me, reacting to the presentation from Jeffrey, I'm not sure I would want to put him on the stand. And I certainly would not, if I was a prosecutor, I would not want Katie on the stand in Charlie Adelson's trial. I would not want her on the stand. She lied. She got caught in so many different tales and stories. This is a messy case. I know that a lot of people are like, it's slam dunk, they're going to get him, and they probably will, but it's messy. It's not a clean case. It's messy.
I can totally see that scenario. He's very protective of her. I think that's more likely than a romantic. All the romantic coupling.
And I'll say this, Jeffrey. Jeffrey said that, he reeks of antisocial personality disorder, but you just heard in his own words, he says, oh, he's very, very protective of Wendy, his sister. Well, Jeffrey, you can't have it both ways. Do you want Charlie Adelson to be antisocial? Or do you want to paint Charlie Adelson as being very compassionate and overly protective of his sister? Because in fact, the picture that you've painted is that Charlie Adelson would have to have done this crime because he wanted to help his sister. Those are not the acts of an antisocial person. If he has antisocial personality disorder, he's not going to be protective of his little sister. It's just facts.
Are with highly educated, high elite status men.
I don't want to throw that away.
Who've got a lot to lose. I mean, she doesn't slum that I know of at all. She doesn't.
Well, I mean, this Charlie guy's a millionaire by your own admission. So
yes. Well, he is. He's got this.
He's got a lot to lose.
He does. He does. He's also really cocky and arrogant and narcissistic.
Oh. What am I going to say, people? My friends. What am I about to say? So old Charlie, you're going to need a notebook for this. I told you this, okay? All right. So Charlie is, according to Jeffrey, a conduct disordered child who grew into an antisocial personality disorder, who commits tax fraud, and he's a sexual deviant, and he's abusive towards his girlfriend, and he's narcissistic personality disorder. And all of this was learned by one meeting with old Charlie. Charlie is a legend in Jeffrey's own mind. Y'all notice that? Jeffrey has built Charlie up into a kind of folk hero, not hero, but an infamous bandit kind of guy, a bad dude, right? Those dental offices, you never know what happens behind those dental chairs. Nancy, let's don't go there. I got to go to the dentist next week. I don't want to think about those kind of things. And can I say this? I have a delightful, dear dentist. He's a wonderful guy. And I choose to think about dentists like my dentist and not like old Charlie, the antisocial tax thief narcissist. Opening statements will be a good summary. Well, Phoebe, just a question. I'm noticing as I'm kind of going through this and I'm stopping and commenting on, specifically really to Jeffrey's comments and testimony. You seem to be taking issue with the things I'm saying, but you're not really correcting me. So what exactly have I said that is inaccurate, Phoebe? A little curious. I think I'm giving a pretty good summary so far of Jeffrey's involvement. Might be the only action I get. Note to self, make dental appointment. Cinnamon. Anne-Marie, yes, I'll have to see if I can get the name of that office. I'm not going there to get my teeth worked on. Well, he does talk about the offices and the nefarious things that happen there. So it's rather interesting. I think, is Phoebe going to tell me? Well, Jeffrey did say all the things you're saying, but turns out he was uncannily right. Well, you're assuming that he's uncannily right because the prosecutor ran with his point of view. You say he's right, and yet I'm able to sit here and point out where he lied. I mean, I don't know of any other way of saying it. The question is he lying in these interviews that happened when he's still very angry at Wendy for dumping him? Or was he lying when he was giving testimony on the stand? Because he's blatantly going against his own words. And I guess it's left up to us to decide at which point he's telling the truth. I'm not talking about all the evidence. I'm talking about Jeffrey LeCase. That's it. I'm just talking about Jeffrey LeCase. Yes, Katie had 2 trials. The first one ended in a hung jury. That does not happen very often. And I think that stands as testament to what I'm saying, that this is a really complicated, overall, a very complicated case where there is absolute room to question the real guilt of Charlie Adelson. It took them 2 years to find the hitmen, and Jeff gave this info the week of the murder. But what does that matter? Like, what? Yeah, I know that it was from the time of the murder to the time that he testified in the trial. It was 8 years, right? But he has access to his testimony or his interview. He knows what he said during his interview. He's not having to remember his interview. You are correct. He did say all that. It's interesting seeing it from your point of view. And thank you for saying that, Moonchild, because that's my whole point, right? My whole point is that we have to be careful about doing what I call bandwagoning. We have to be careful about the bandwagoning because there are circumstances where innocent people are found guilty and they're sent to jail. And try to imagine if that was your son or your daughter or you or your mom or dad that somehow got wrapped up in some terrible situation that resulted in, a false imprisonment. And now through the use of DNA testing and whatnot, there have been a lot of people that have been unveiled as actually being innocent, and they've served 10, 20, 30 years in prison. They get released, they win a lawsuit, multi-million-dollar, lawsuit against the state or whatever. But they can't get those years back, they're gone. So out of respect for the Constitution, out of respect for the law, we have to really be careful that we're not just looking for someone that we can say, we got our man, yay. Got to be really careful that we're investigating people, that we're following all the avenues of investigation, not kind of foreclosing on an idea too early and whatnot. I do think there's some really good evidence in this case. As I said, I'm pretty sure he's going to be found guilty, but this is one of the few cases where I can really see some major problems. And I think Jeffrey LaCase is a major problem in terms of his testimony. If a good defense attorney pays attention, they can expose him on the stand. They can tear his testimony to pieces. The hitmen were from Miami. One was the ex of Charlie's girlfriend, Katie. Well, actually, isn't he the father of one of her children, right? I think it's possible Wendy did not know what was happening, but I do think Charlie and Donna were behind it. But do you agree that Jeffrey LaCase is bitter? Can you hear the bitterness when he talks about her? He's invested in I think he wanted to hurt her. And it's possible too that maybe Charlie offended him, that maybe he was already a little jealous of Charlie's accomplishments, lifestyle and whatnot. And I like the way he says, oh, Charlie's a dentist. Well, he's a dental surgeon. He's a medical doctor. You can call him a dentist if you want to, but the fact is he just goes around from practice to practice doing surgeries on people, collecting money. He makes a lot of money doing that. And I find it interesting that not only is Jeffrey LaCase really trying really hard to make the cops investigate Charlie, but that he's also trying to sort of belittle Charlie. He's trying to reduce Charlie somewhat in stature. At the same time he's doing that, though, you can tell that he's turned Charlie into the evil, some sort of evil, nefarious character in his mind. And so he's kind of made a cartoon character out of Charlie because he's so in awe. It's kind of a sad thing. But for whatever reason, whatever made Jeffrey angry, I think it's clear that he's bitter with Wendy during this interview. He's bitter with Wendy, and he really doesn't like Charlie. Near Jock's place in Texas, a female dentist ran over her husband, Dennis, with a Mercedes, if I remember correct. You are correct. And she ran over him not once, but I think like 6 or 7 times. Bling may know. And this was her husband. She had her stepdaughter that was with her and witnessed the whole thing. It was a terrible, terrible case. And it was because she was mad that her dentist husband was having an affair. And so she caught him at the hotel and done him in. So I divorced a OMFS, so I follow dentists out of habit. Yeah, she did flip out big time. Funny, the jury selection special attorney for the defense asked the jury pool if any of them did not like dentists. Well, there is Phoebe, you solved the mystery, right? They had a hard time, getting a jury seated. they went through a lot of potential jurors. You just answered the question why. Everybody hates the dentist, Phoebe. That's so funny. I can envision 21 people sitting there ready to be questioned. And then the guy says, how many of you, dislike dentists? And all 21 hands go up. That's too funny. I love it. It's hilarious. I do hate the dentist too, but my in particular dentist, he's a good guy. I like him. All right, here we go.
As many did it, but he's aggressive. He's argumentative. Focused on himself completely. He's got 3 girlfriends at a time, which some people do that, I know, but no qualms about it,
So you think he may be good for it?
Assuming this isn't a botched burglary or something like that, he's the first. Charlie popped into my head within 20 seconds of hearing this.
I don't know, Jeffrey. I got to say something here. You probably don't want to know who popped in my head that might have done this.
We ran into some problems in May and June.
Oh, did I get?
Started fighting.
When was that?
That was Saturday at 2 p.m.
Well, I mean, she's got a lot on her mind right now.
She does, but the thing was, she's texting with Jane. She's calling other mutual friends. She's in touch with lots of other people.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well,
and this may be too messy for her.
yeah,
But I'm not trying to.
I wouldn't take that personally
No, I'm not.
at this point.
No, I'm not. I know she's in a mess. I sent her a book for little kids about bereavement from Amazon. Successful dentist, but he reeks of antisocial behavior.
Listen to this.
Now, I could be 100% wrong, but I wouldn't want to miss that if I was investigating it. He's got a close friend who's a ex-special forces guy, like a Navy SEAL or something. He's out with all the time.
What did she say to you specifically? I mean, when you say
She said,
all options.
she said, Charlie, I can't remember exactly.
See, I have
something to do with the amount of money it would cost to have someone killed.
that is so hard for me to accept, y'all, that he has the most negative appraisal of a guy that he's met one time. I mean, he's got this guy convicted. He's ready to send him down the pipe. And then when they ask, okay, what exactly did you hear? He doesn't know. You're accusing him. You're accusing a special forces guy of somehow being a reflection of a potential murderer because he's friends with Charlie Adelson. But you don't know what they said? Come on, Jeffrey. Come on. I'm just playing, y'all.
If you're looking at somebody, don't miss him. And I can also see him doing this without ever telling Wendy he didn't do it. I can see Wendy being innocent, puzzled, and Charlie did. I can totally see that scenario. He's very protective of her.
I agree, Bling, about it.
More likely than romantic. All the romantic couplings are with highly educated, high elite status men.
You don't want to throw that away.
Who've got a lot to lose. I mean, she doesn't slum that I know of at all.
I remember hearing this. When I heard this, my red flag warning bells went up like crazy. Okay. So they're talking about Wendy and her dating lifestyle. Oh, this is going to piss Bling off too. Totally. So they're talking about Wendy and her dating habits. And he says, oh, she always goes out with these really high status elite men. Oh, like you, Jeffrey? Like you? So then he says, quotation marks, she doesn't go slumming. What? What do you mean, Jeffrey? Because you are sounding an awful lot like a narcissist. What do you mean slumming? Like if she decided to go out with an accountant, would she be slumming? Or if she decided to go out with a mechanic, would that be slumming? Like what exactly is a person who is slumming, Jeffrey? At what point do we reduce people's humanity to what their job or their income is? Because you just did that. You just said that she only goes out with elite, high status men, that she wouldn't go slumming. So are you saying that guys that are truck drivers, guys that are not, doctors and attorneys, is that what you're saying? Is that what you're trying to say? Because the real Jeffrey was not revealed, but should be by the defense team, in my opinion. There you go. And our channel, we do have a lot of psychologists and mental health experts, licensed social workers. We have a lot of you guys in our community. What are y'all thinking about the way that he talks about other people? It's a little bothersome.
On a mission, so
Yes. Well, he is. He's got this buddy.
he's got a lot to lose.
He does. He does. He's also really cocky and arrogant and narcissistic. So, I wish you had him in front of you, because I think he'd set off your alarm bells. That doesn't mean he did it, but he's aggressive. He's argumentative. Self-focused on himself completely. He's got 3 girlfriends at a time, which some people do that, I know, but no qualms about it,
Who thinks that Jeffrey is jealous of Charlie?
Assuming this isn't a botched burglary or something like that, he's the first. Charlie popped into my head within 20 seconds of hearing this.
Let me tell you why the law of attraction does not work for most people. Now, to manifest anything, you must ask, then receive. Right.
On August 12, 2014, Jeffrey LaCase came to the police department after calling and asking to meet with the detective the day before. He advised me he was going through old text messages and discovered the following. He and ex-girlfriend Wendy Adelson were supposed to go to California July the 11th through the 17th. He advised that they had made reservations on April 30th, and Wendy Adelson later canceled those reservations on June the 4th. He also advised that he heard from Wendy and other friends that Wendy's brother Charlie texted her last week and asked her to go out and celebrate. He further stated that while Wendy was at dinner with Charlie, she vomited at the table. He thought all of this was highly suspicious in lieu of the recent homicide. LaCase further advised Wendy went to Guatemala March 13th to the 15th. He stated she seemed different after her trip to that country. LaCase did not elaborate any further. He provided that Wendy told him over the telephone that people were saying that she wanted to leave Tallahassee, and she told him that she did not want to leave Tallahassee. LaCase told me that this statement was completely contradictory to the way she felt about Tallahassee and wanting to go to South Florida. What? Jeffrey, now you've contradicted yourself completely on the same topic for a third time. You can't make a decision, Jeffrey. Did she want to be in Tallahassee or did she not want to be in Tallahassee? She says that she was relieved to find out that she could stay in Tallahassee. And now here you have Jeffrey himself saying that Wendy told him she did not want to leave Tallahassee. And yet we're still going to believe Jeffrey LaCase? This is not good, people. This is not good. Not good, in my opinion. In speaking to LaCase, he believed that Wendy Adelson may be indirectly responsible for the murder of her ex-husband, Daniel Marco. When I informed him that Wendy was not a suspect, he said, and I quote, "Well, she should be." Now remember, this guy wanted to be dating her when she asked for space. She asked for no contact for a week. So if you think that this
It was
guy
Jeffrey or
is
Jeff?
suspect,
Jeffrey.
put a 1. If you think he's perfectly normal, put a 2.
And it's LAC.
ASSE.
Let me get your date of birth, Jeff.
Sure, 10/18/71.
Okay. So what's up? Corey said, and we talked on the phone a little bit, that you want to do. And you can start at the very beginning, however you want to do it.
I got
don't
some
mind.
notes. Do you mind that?
No, absolutely not.
I don't want to forget stuff, so I've been writing stuff down last few months. That might end up.
So he's taking notes. The story's all coming together now.
Just to give you the broad overview quickly. I felt like when I first talked to Investigator Hale, I was shattered. I mean, imagine you see violent crime all the time. So I think he saw a lot of noise, and a lot of the stuff I told him, but I don't know how it came across. The last couple of meetings we had, he seemed to think I was a disgruntled ex-boyfriend that got my heart broken, and that was why I was
You
upset.
definitely
There was
impressed
some
as
truth
a
to that.
disgruntled
I was upset.
boyfriend
But
with
over
your heart
time,
broken.
got some clarity on some things. So I guess I'll just give you my overall impression. And just want to tell you things I saw with my own 2 eyes that were very suspicious to me that I didn't feel really hurt previously. Or maybe they were hurt and not seen as credible. I don't know. But just so you get the context for it, as far as the relationship stuff, that sucked. But that last 3-4 months, I moved on with my life. Actually, her moving away was the best thing that ever happened to me in terms of my
Oh,
personal
sure it
life.
was, Jeffrey.
So this is
Of
not
course. Yeah. Scott
animosity
Peterson.
towards her for being an unfaithful girlfriend. This is more deeply concerning stuff about someone getting killed. So I started dating Wendy in fall of 2013. We have mutual friends, but a lot of our friends are in the Jewish community at the School of Social Work. So we both talk to a lot of the same people. Throughout the investigation, your name came up a couple of times. And we just have a lot of mutual friends and stuff. So that's how we met. So we dated casually in the fall. She just got divorced, so had I actually. And at the time, I came in here before, I thought Marco was a dick. That's what I had been taught by Wendy. Over time, I realized I was kind of misled.
Is that right? You were misled? What about all the people that work with him that said that he was not nice?
Describing Wendy as a pathological liar and a mentally ill narcissistic sociopath in a semi-joking manner, but
To you?
to other people. I just heard that through the grapevine.
Let me tell you why the law of attraction does not work for most people. Now, to manifest
crazy?
anything, you
What?
must ask, then receive. Right. But let's face it, if it were that easy, everyone would be a millionaire because everyone wishes that. So,
Okay. Is that unbelievable? The way that he just described her?
Oh, I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. Strange. Oh, I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. No, she's done. Why don't she give a shit if I'm here Friday? She asked me directly, are you going to be here Friday? And I said, maybe it's up in the air. And it wasn't up in the air. I just didn't want to seem desperate. And I was just going to stay here and not take my trip if Wendy was willing to see me is what that was about. But she was really interested. Oh, why is it up in the air? Oh, because, his end was a thing. Okay, well, okay. Talk to you
And this was prior to her sending you the email.
prior to sending me the email. And the last thing
Or her work account.
let me tell you why the law of attraction
that's
does not
what I
work for most.
So for some reason, the video is
Or a different account.
it's bumping
See,
out.
if I want to go
I
back
don't know
and
why
look
it's
at it,
doing
I'm gonna
that.
look at the Gmail.
Yeah, that's what you know.
Did she give a reason?
It's deeply important to her she be perceived a certain way.
No, did she give a reason why she was having multiple sex partners?
Not a good one, no. She said she didn't actually. She said she was very upset by my behavior in Immokalee when we had two that you or I would probably consider normal range, uncomfortable conversations for 30 seconds. Where she said, I was afraid in Immokalee you were going to be a jerk. I was like, I said, could you please be more considerate to me? That's literally all I said.
I don't believe you, Jeffrey.
Trigger. I think she didn't want a boyfriend, is my suspicion. I think I was
And that's
awful
okay
helpful.
if she didn't want a boyfriend.
Okay, I got you.
I think she enjoyed using me as her.
Okay, let's narrow this down.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
June
know, Nancy,
27th,
right?
you're telling me is the date that you're in Gainesville and you have this blow up.
Yeah, we have a 12 block.
Okay, so is the comment about Charlie and the 15 grand after that?
It is after that.
Okay, so we can narrow it down to the 27th and
Yeah.
after.
You know what? I just want to be as conservative as I can, but I'm almost positive that was July, the Monday before he was shot. If I had
Are
to bet
you?
money on it, that's where I put my money.
Is that where you'd put your money, Jeffrey? Are you sure about that, buddy?
So,
I'm sorry,
Yeah, I was
y'all.
talking to her
This
about
guy's
that.
hard to take.
I was struck by how cold and callous and basically sociopathic she was.
She is a hussy,
Yeah, I know, I was
Nancy,
surprised.
or
I was
she's
very
having
upset.
fun.
And I said, you're not a sociopath. You must feel bad about this on a certain level. And she goes, I don't know if I'm a sociopath. I don't feel bad about any of this.
Had there ever been a confusion about, okay, Jeff, I'll just be simple,
Yeah.
elementary terms. Jeff loves Wendy. Wendy loves everybody. You see what I'm getting at?
No, that's what
You understood that she was supposed to be strictly with you.
Yeah, just from March on. Before that, I knew I
Right.
knew what she was doing before that. March on, I've been to 50 dinner parties where I'm introduced as her boyfriend. She took me out in public constantly. Let's continue.
Give me a minute here.
Yeah.
You need something?
If you have a water, I'm
Yeah,
going to dry
yeah.
mouth. I appreciate it.
So that detective is going to get their psychologist to come and watch the interview and go, what do you think of this guy? This seems really uncomfortable. Okay. All right, look, here's the only point that I'm making here. And here's the truth of the matter. It is critters. Let me ask y'all this, okay? So again, I have to defer to the people who have been following this case for nearly 10 years. Okay, that right off on it. But if we're only talking about Jeffrey Lacasse or Lacasse and nobody else, right? We're only talking about him, his presentation, the way he speaks of Wendy as well as Charlie Adelson. Would you be confident having him as a witness? I just kept thinking to myself, I'm not having this positive reaction to this guy. I'm listening to him calling BS that, he's got sour grapes and he's intentionally trying to, jam the Adelsons up in an effort to try to get back at, Wendy. I mean, we can all see there's some controlling stuff. He's a bit aggressive, a bit dismissive of people and whatnot. I would not want to trust him on the witness stand. If you loved Wendy like I loved Wendy, oh, there you go, Nancy. So, so this is a very curious part of this very elaborate case. And Vicky, I agree. It feels nasty. It feels like he is angry and he wants someone else to be angry too. And the labels that I'm talking about psychiatric labels. He's just throwing them out, giving everybody a label. If you're an Adelson, you have a psychiatric disorder, according to Dr. Lacasse. Okay. So, but don't forget, I'm not just picking on Jeffrey. Okay. I'm not being unreasonable against Jeffrey. I've given you guys about 7 different examples where he directly contradicts himself. That what he says in these interviews is not what he says on the stand in the trial. So what do you guys think that this hotshot Clemson defense attorney is going to do to old Jeffrey when it's his turn up on the stand? What do you guys think is going to happen? This is going to be a takedown of a witness unlike we have seen since Amber Heard. Do you remember how furious Amber Heard was when Johnny Depp's defense team finished with her cross-examination. She was so furious that she couldn't even sit down at the table. She walked right out of that courtroom. Y'all remember that? That is what's going to happen to Mr. Jeffrey when the young Clemson attorney gets a hold of him. So this is going to be a fireworks trial. This is going to be one we all need to be watching. And maybe what we need to do is we need to do some kind of like, I don't know, betting bracket or something to see, who folds first, who gets through, and what the final outcome is. Is Bling still here? Not sure if she's still here. Let's see. Where is Bling? Bling, are you here? Ring, ring. Calling Bling is the new black. I think she's gone. Yeah, we're going to have to definitely do watch party. Absolutely, Cinnamon. So, Bling's here. Okay, good. So, Bling, are you in the Charlie Adelson is guilty bracket, or are you in the there may be reasonable doubt bracket? Or is it maybe it's too early to tell? I hope you are. Okay, so I'll put hold on just a second. I'll put a link up. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. All right. I don't want to put pressure on anybody, but if you want to come up and kind of give a quick little rundown of what your opinion is on either Jeffrey LaCase in general, is he a good witness or is he sour grapes? And then in the big picture, how do you think this trial is going to turn out? Bling is 100% Charlie did it. 100%. All right, Bling. We're going to have to see where this takes us, right? Yeah, no, there's definitely some compelling evidence against Charlie. Absolutely agree. But the reason that I chose to start this talking about Jeffrey LaCase is because I wanted to sort of highlight for everyone, including those people that have already been following the case, but I wanted to highlight for everyone, this is not going to be a slam dunk like it looks like on the surface. This defense has some tools to work with. And Jeffrey LaCase, if you are listening, because we know you are going to experience a great deal of pressure on the witness stand, I think, that you did not experience in the Magbanua trial is what I kind of think. So Moonchild has cleared her schedule. I bet you have, Moonchild. I'm telling you, if Barry Morphew gets arrested again and is facing a trial, I'm totally no work. I'm going to be there for every minute of the trial. So I am glad that you are going to watch everything. You'll have to come up and talk with us and tell us, what you saw, what your opinions are, and we would love to have you. Okay. And you can all argue with me, and you can all, prove me wrong and all that, because that is what makes these cases interesting is when you get one of these cases where, you definitely see why they arrested someone, but then you think, but you know what? This defense definitely is still in the game. If we consider the Vallow Daybell case, the defense has nothing. There's no game there at all. You don't even know why they're going through a trial, right? It's such a horrible case, and nothing redeeming, nothing questionable about either the Chadster or Lori. So it's just a horrible process, technicality kind of. But these kinds of cases are just a little bit different. There's a little bit to work with here, and this is just Jeffrey. I would never put Katie Magbanua on the stand because of the way she lied, during her trial. I would not want to do that. So, and Moonchild, that brings up a very good question. Are you of the opinion that Donna will be arrested next, or do you think it's going to be Wendy? I'll tell you what I think. I think that it's going to be Donna that will next be arrested. And the reason that I believe that is because they would not give her immunity during Charlie's trial. So I think that's interesting. And if I was Donna and Harvey, I would be nervous right now. I'd be scared. Yeah, if you want to come up, Blaine, you can. Sometimes it's easier to state your position verbally than to try to type it all out. But don't feel pressured. You don't have to. The thing about Katie is she may be coming clean after her 12-hour meeting with prosecutors. Nothing to lose. Yeah, I would agree with you on that, Phoebe, but then there will be those people who will say, well, she's lying again, and now she's going to say whatever the prosecution wants her to say because she's trying to get less time on her sentence, but it's still a lie. So I'm not going to listen to her at all. So it can backfire on you. You have to be careful. It can backfire on you. I will have an open mind watching Rashburn. All right. So what do y'all think of Jeffrey LaCase? Especially like Phoebe and Moonchild. Now that you see the reality of him contradicting himself and how much, kind of under the radar kind of anger, simmering kind of anger that he has for Wendy and jealousy, towards Charlie. Do you think he legitimately thinks they're that bad, or do you think he's just angry with them? I agree with you on Donna. So you think Donna's next? I kind of think she is too. Yeah. Thank you, Nancy. The thing about Katie is she may be coming clean. Oh, I already read that. Sorry. All right. So we made it. We're at an hour and 53 minutes, and we still have, we're still looking at another hour on the Jeffrey LaCase interview. And then once we finish the Jeffrey LaCase interview, then we're going to go to Wendy's initial interview where she finds out that Dan Markle has been shot. Okay. Now, I'm sure that Phoebe and Moonchild and others have sort of already told the people in chat, but here's something that's important. I saw somebody say something like, well, she didn't even go help her husband who was dying in the hospital. Dan Markle, she had been divorced from Dan Markle for, I guess, more than a year. He was already dating another woman, Amy, who was a law professor at NYU. We're talking about some highly successful people that Jeffrey LaCase was not in the same league with in terms of level of accomplishment, I guess, right? So Dan Markle was a hotshot power broker, up and coming guy. This new woman in his life, Amy, big shot, NYU law professor, they are playing on a different playing field than Wendy was. But it's very interesting because Charlie was also kind of that higher level of achievement and accomplishment. And I think I do think that something about Charlie and Dan, I think it really triggered Jeffrey that maybe he, some of his own esteem needs that maybe he didn't feel like Wendy looked up to him the way that she should have looked up to him. And that might have been that might have been why, you know, he was a bit unhappy or bitter. No, I get it, Bling. No, I said that. Don't worry, it's okay. In order for Katie to be believed, she must have proof. As far as Jeffrey, I will go back and rewatch. I think he feels like he was fooled. No, I think he felt fooled. And I think he felt dismissed, right? I think he thought that he had hit the gold mine. I don't mean gold mine, but like jackpot. That he had hit the jackpot with Wendy. She's very beautiful. She's very accomplished, comes from a wealthy family. I think he thought, wow, you know, this is the kind of woman I was meant to be with because I myself am great. And then I think when she decided that she didn't really want to continue the relationship, I think it really undermined his confidence. I think it spoke to, I think he felt dismissed and belittled, and he was jealous that he was not on the same caliber professionally as Dan Markle and Charlie Adelson. And I think it really stung, you know, when she said, no, I don't want this. I think it really hurt him. But you can't, just because someone hurts your feelings, you can't go around setting them up to be a murderer. You cannot do that. It's not, it's, well, Jeffrey, what's the word you would use, Jeff? Would psychopathy rate in there that if someone hurts your feelings, you feel justified to point the finger and say, that guy is antisocial personality disorder who runs around with a special forces guy and he totally did it. And Wendy did it. Just because they hurt your feelings, just because she didn't want to date you, you shouldn't do that to people. That's not okay to treat people that way. All right. Let's see. Reminded me of Shoho saying that she was told she looked like Suzanne in the affidavit. Anne-Marie, I completely forgot about that little gem. So thank you for that little nugget of joy. Yeah, I forgot about that, but you're exactly right. And we were all just kind of dumbfounded, right? Because when you consider that Suzanne Morphew, her age and the fact that she had gone through so much treatment for cancer, and yet she was in the prime. Barry himself said that her physical condition, she was in the best shape that she had ever been in terms of muscle, you know, strength and whatnot. So Suzanne was sort of like that model for any, you know, older lady who's becoming middle-aged. You know, you would aspire to want to be like Suzanne Morphew. She's beautiful, right? And she was giving and loving and kind and dedicated and all those cool things that, you know, people want to be. And then you have Shoho's a little bit different lifestyle. And she says, well, yeah, I looked like Suzanne. And people were like, ooh, okay, I don't think so. But okay, if people told you that, you know, I don't think that's true. I don't think anybody told Shoho that she looked like Suzanne. What do you think, Anne-Marie? Do you think somebody really told Shoho that she looked like Suzanne? Do you think so? I find that hard to believe. It is not nice to set up people for your crime. Oh, Nancy went there. Boom. Nancy went there. She said it. Mic drop, Nancy. Jeffrey felt like they had tried to set him up as the fall guy. Yeah, I know that after the fact, but in the first couple of interviews here, he doesn't know that, right? So he's already casting doubt and making them look at Charlie before that comes out. She did not know that he was actually out of town the day of the murder. Let's see. The rental car looked like the same silver car that Jeff drove. I guess I thought Wendy had told Jeff these things about Charlie, but now realize maybe I just assumed that she had. Used and abused. We used to say, so if you're like, we rode horses and everything, we used to say rode hard and put up wet. Because if you ride a horse really hard and they get like really sweaty, then you don't brush them out and you just put them in the pen. Then the next day when you go, they got dried salt all over them and they're a real mess. They look terrible. All right. So you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for sticking at 2 hours we spent with Jeffrey LaCase. What do you think? Was that a 2 hours well spent, or do you wish you could get those 2 hours back? If it was 2 hours well spent, put a 1. If you wish you could get these 2 hours back, put a 2. It's okay, Jeff. We know you want those 2 hours back, big guy. Remember Clint Eastwood had for the blonde, Sandra Locke. Is that her name? Is that who you're talking about, Cinnamon? Sandra Locke? I think that was her name in that movie with the ape, the orangutan. Every which way, any which way, every which. I can't remember the name of the movie. Phoebe said, okay, Phoebe is giving us a dialogue. Wendy, do not contact me for a week. Jeff, okay. Wendy, oh, what time are you leaving town Friday? 11 a.m. still? Jeff, yeah. But he left the night before, correct? And stopped in Atlanta, Georgia at a crappy Days Inn, I believe. All right. Cinnamon. So fun. That's a great orangutan, though, wasn't it? I love the orangutan. Yeah, it's a great orangutan. And who doesn't love Clint Eastwood? He's amazing. All right. Thank you, Cinnamon. Thank you so much. We got a couple of people. All right. So tomorrow, I don't know, Phoebe, did they finally seat their jury today? Or are they doing more jury selection in the morning? Hey, Kathy R., welcome back. Thank you, Bling. Bling says it was a good time. Moonchild says it was a good time. Y'all are too kind. Thank you. Okay, so we got a jury. Good deal. So Phoebe says we've got a full jury seated. And so tomorrow morning is opening statements. Is that correct, Phoebe? It's so exciting. And I got to tell you guys something. I want everybody to say hashtag thank you, Bling, because if it hadn't been for Bling, I never would have even looked into this case. So we got to thank Bling because she totally got me on this thing. And she told me, she said, you got to look at this. She said, you're going to love this. And I was like, oh my God, not another case. And she's like, you got to look at it. And so I did. And I looked at it. I watched like one video. I think it was Katie's video. And I was like, what? And then I was like for hours all night long, just listening to like the trials and the interviews. Yeah. I went right off the deep end, Bling, right off. Opening statements are tomorrow morning at either 8:30 or 9. And remember, people, that is Eastern time. Thank you, Phoebe. That is Eastern time. So if you are in the great country of Texas, you're going to have to get up early. You know what I mean? It's going to be 7 a.m. here. I can't tomorrow, Kathy. Tomorrow is one of my 10-hour days. I'll watch if I get a no-show or a cancellation. But yeah, I can't. I'm really, really bummed out, but I'll watch it tomorrow night and then we'll talk about it on Friday. Unless Bling wants to do it on her channel. Or Phoebe, do you or Moonlight Rose, do y'all have channels? I guess well, no, because tomorrow night it's going to be probably like 8:30 before I get home. Yeah, I know. I was so glad Bling told me about it. It's great, 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 great. So for sure on Friday, I'll be going over the opening statements, giving my reaction, and then I want to do the last half of this Jeffrey LaCase interview, and then I want to do the Wendy interview. So it's going to be a big weekend. We got a lot to cover over the weekend. It is a rabbit hole. Bling, you got me. I'm hooked in it. I'm totally hooked. Tallahassee Democrat YouTube channel is the only live stream that I know that is doing it. Okay, so does everybody hear that? You need to go to the Tallahassee Democrat YouTube channel. Let me see if I can. Oh, I can't find it right now because my computer's got its brain scrambled. Thank you, Cinnamon, for putting up Blaine's link to her channel. Thank you so much. I love the stream, love the people in the stream, love the creator, love the content. And Nancy Drew, we love you. You're awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So tomorrow morning, about 7:30 or 8 a.m., if you're in Central Time, okay, 8:30 or 9 if you're on the East Coast, on the Tallahassee Democrat YouTube channel, that's where you can watch the opening statements for the trial of Charlie Adelson. All right. And this is going to be our case. We're going to be deep in it, up to our eyeballs. All right. Very good. Hey, Bobby Bureau, how are you doing? Hey, Epic Games, good to see you. Thank you. Kathy R. subbed. So sub to the Tallahassee Democrat YouTube channel. And please don't forget, you've got to sub to the Deep Dive True Crime. Okay? Deep Dive True Crime. Please go by there, give them a subscription, give them a thumbs up. All righty? All right, this is so exciting. Thank you, Bling, for giving me a great trial to follow. I'm so excited. Well, and that was the thing, Cinnamon. So going through watching this, just like every case, we always tend to go toward, the cops got the right guy. And in 9 times out of 10, they do have the right guy. And I think probably in this case, they've got the right guy. The problem is their witnesses are really bad. Like their witnesses are flawed. So even like in the Murdoch case, all of those witnesses were really stable, good reputation, the kind of people that you can, when they say something, you can trust it. In this case, not so much. And that's what happened with Casey Anthony. That's why Casey Anthony walked, is because Jose Baez capitalized on the quality of witnesses that the prosecution had. All right. Thank you. You guys are amazing and awesome. Please go by and, share the love with Deep Dive True Crime. And then I can't wait to see you guys on Friday to talk about whatever goes on tomorrow in the opening statements. All right. So y'all have a wonderful evening. If you have not subscribed, I hope you will. Please leave a thumbs up and a comment underneath the video. That helps me with the algorithm. And I will see you guys on Friday. Y'all enjoy the trial tomorrow. Feel bad that I have to work. All right. See you guys later. Bye.